We were together for 8 years. 2 children, plans together, dinners in the kitchen and dreams of going on a trip. I always believed that he was my home. That September I lived almost in euphoria. His birthday was approaching, and I decided to surprise him. A gift that he had wanted for a long time, but had never dared to buy for himself. I ran half the city in search, even taking weekends off to have time to do everything. I thought how his eyes would shine when he saw it. He often stayed late at work in those days. He would come back late, tired, but always with some strange smile, as if he had his own little secret. I thought then that maybe he was preparing a surprise for me too. How wrong I was. I couldn't even imagine that for several weeks now I've been living in a reality where he comes home, hugs me, kisses the children, and a few hours before that he kissed someone else. It happened by accident. I got home earlier than I had planned. The kids were at Grandma's, and I decided I would have time to cook something special for dinner, so he would come and feel expected. His phone was on the kitchen table. He never left it unattended, but this time he hadn't even put a lock on it. I wasn't going to rummage through it, I never did. But the phone vibrated, and a name I'd never seen before flashed on the screen. A woman. With a heart. At first I just froze. Then my finger clicked on the message. There were a few lines, but they hit harder than any screams. Thank you for yesterday. I can still smell you on me. I found it hard to breathe. Everything I thought was true began to crumble like an old house from the slightest jolt. I put the phone down like it was hot. I wanted to believe it was a joke, a mistake, anything, except that it was really about my husband. And then I heard the sound of a key in the lock. He came in, as always, with the same slight smile he had been returning home with for the past few months. He put down his bag, took off his jacket, and was about to hug me. Who is Alina? I asked quietly. His smile disappeared, but only for a moment. Then he shrugged and started acting surprised. Who else is Alina? I handed him the phone. He didn't even pick it up, he just looked at the screen and took a deep breath. Are you digging into my personal stuff? His voice became cold, almost unfamiliar. That's not normal, you know. I stood there, holding myself in my hands to keep from screaming. Is that all you can say? After what I've read. He started explaining that it was just a colleague, that they were joking, that I was exaggerating again, as usual. And he said something I will always remember. You've become too intrusive lately. You're constantly controlling. Maybe the problem is you. At that moment I realized that not only was he cheating, but he was also trying to make me believe that it was my fault. After that conversation, I walked around the apartment like a ghost. The children were laughing in their room, the TV was on in the kitchen, and inside me there was a silence, thick and suffocating. I tried to convince myself that maybe I was really exaggerating. That maybe it was just a stupid joke and I had broken everything out of jealousy. But then I remembered the words from that message, and a coldness spread throughout my body. It hurt so much that it was even physically difficult to breathe. He walked next to me, pretending that nothing had happened, asking if I had bought something for his holiday. And that was the cruelest thing, he continued to live as if I hadn't seen the truth. At night, I lay there, staring at the ceiling and listening to him sleep next to me. Only one thought was going through my head: how could you? All that remained of my love for him was a fragile, almost transparent shell. But inside she was still alive, and that made the pain unbearable. I went on for many days, as if on autopilot. I took care of the children, cooked, worked, but inside I was constantly thinking, what next? There were 2 ways: to close my eyes and live as if nothing had happened, or to leave. Leave, even if it was scary, even if it hurt to the bone, even if I had to start from scratch. He seemed sure that I would choose the first option. That my love was stronger than my pride. Perhaps once it would be. But this time something in me broke completely. That evening I looked at him and understood. In front of me was a person whom I once adored, but who deliberately erased all my feelings, replacing them with suspicion and pain. I decided that I would remain calm until his birthday. I would not give him any reason to accuse me of being emotional or hysterical. But after that, I would leave. Without scandals, without shouting, without broken dishes. I'll just take my children and my dignity. His birthday had arrived. I had set the table, decorated the room, bought the gift I had been looking for so long. Everything was perfect, at least from the outside. He was sitting at the table, laughing, joking, accepting greetings from his friends. And no one but me could see that there was an invisible wall between us that could no longer be broken. I waited for the guests to disperse. When the door closed behind the last one, I took my bag, keys, and documents that I had prepared in advance. "Where are you going?" He looked at me with slight surprise, but without any anxiety. "Home," I said. "Really?" He was silent. I didn't shout, I didn't accuse, I didn't make excuses. I just walked away. And with each step I felt the weight on my shoulders become lighter. I don't know if he realized at that moment that he had lost me forever. But that didn't matter anymore. The first few weeks were the hardest. I would wake up in a new apartment that still smelled of paint, and I would catch myself wanting to share some little thing with him, a joke, a piece of news, a photo of the kids. But then I would remember that this wasn't us anymore. At first, the kids would ask when we would be back home. I didn't know how to explain to them that a home isn't about the walls, it's about the people who live in it. And if someone cheats, the house falls apart, even if the roof stays in place. I was learning to live anew. I bought new dishes, chose curtains, and for the first time in a long time, did my hair just for myself. It was hard, but there was freedom in that. From time to time, he would write. "How are you? Let's talk, maybe we can fix everything." But I already knew, what was broken between us couldn't be fixed even with the strongest glue. Sometimes, when it was especially difficult, I caught myself thinking, maybe come back. Not because I forgave him, but because it was scary to be alone. It's scary to understand that now all the problems, all the bills, all the decisions are only mine. I remembered how he knew how to hug so that the whole world ceased to exist. How we laughed at night when the children were sleeping. How he was once my best friend. But every time my heart began to weaken, I remembered that phone call, that message, that coldness in his voice when he accused me of his own betrayal. And I understood, there would be no return. Love can endure a lot, but not betrayal, followed by lies and shifting the blame. Because then it ceases to be love and turns into shackles. I started small. I joined the gym, not because he had ever suggested I lose weight, but because I wanted to feel my body strong and alive. I started reading books I didn't have time for before. I started listening to music on my headphones at full volume again, making myself breakfasts that I liked, not him. At first, it all seemed artificial, like I was just trying to distract myself. But then I caught myself laughing my heart out. That I would wake up and not think about him. That I could look at our old photos without that sharp pain under my ribs. It wasn't a quick process. But day by day, I rebuilt myself. I was no longer his wife, the mother of our children, the mistress of the house. I was becoming myself again, a woman with her own life, desires, and dreams. For the first time in years, I began to look people in the eye without looking away. I felt my straight posture returning, my habit of speaking softly so as not to annoy someone was disappearing. One day, I caught my reflection in a store window and almost stopped. In front of me stood not the tired, lost woman I remembered myself as in the last months with him, but confident, beautiful, alive. I no longer waited for messages from him. I no longer replayed in my head what I had said or done wrong. I no longer apologized for who I was. This confidence was not ostentatious, it grew from within, because I knew I had survived something that seemed to break me forever. And I came out of it stronger. I was leaving work when I saw him. He was standing outside the coffee shop where we used to sit together every Saturday. Only now he wasn't alone. She was next to him. Young, smiling, with the same carefreeness that I once had. He noticed me too. For a moment, something like confusion flashed in his eyes, but he quickly became the same again, calm and confident. I didn't approach. I didn't say hello. I just walked past, and looking straight ahead, I felt no wave of pain rising in my chest. Only a quiet emptiness. Once upon a time, this picture would have torn me apart from the inside. But now I knew, this is not my story anymore. This is theirs, and let them deal with what they built on lies. A few months after that meeting, I went somewhere alone for the first time in a long time. Without children, without a permanent goal to please anyone. Just me, a train ticket, and a small suitcase. I sat by the window, drinking coffee from a paper cup, and watching the landscape outside the window change every minute. And I felt that something was changing inside me, too. I started writing a list of things I wanted to try in life. Travel to places I had never been. Learn to surf. Take a cooking class. Learn a new language. Now my world was not limited to one person. And I was no longer afraid of what lay ahead. On the contrary, I wanted to know what else was waiting for me around the corner. I wasn't looking for anyone. Honestly. But life has a strange habit of throwing people up just when you're no longer clinging to the past. We met by chance, in line at a bookstore. He helped me pick up a book that had fallen off the shelf, and we started talking. At first we just exchanged a few phrases, then, over coffee at a nearby cafe. I found myself laughing like I hadn't laughed in a long time. That I was interested in listening to his stories, and I didn't think about whether he had written the same messages to someone else. It was easy. Without tension, without fear. And then I realized, I'm no longer afraid to trust. Not because I'm confident in someone else, but because I'm confident in myself. He wrote to me again. The message was long, emotional, that he was sorry for making a mistake, that he wanted his family back. He asked to meet, just talk. I stared at the screen for a long time. Once these words would have melted me. Once I would have dropped everything and run. But now it was different. We met in the park. He talked, tried to touch my hand, remembered the good moments. And I listened, and felt that there was no anger in me. There was only peace and certainty that there was no way back. Thank you for coming, he said at the end. I will still regret it. This is not my story anymore, I answered. Take care of yourself. I left without even looking back. And for the first time I truly felt that the past was left behind. Almost 2 years have passed. I no longer think about him every day. From time to time, memories come, but without that burning pain. Now they are like old photographs, just a part of my past that I have experienced. I realize that betrayal is not the end of the world, although at that moment it seems that way. It is the end of only one story, but not life in general. Sometimes the end is the beginning of something much better. I learned to value myself, to hear my desires and to build a life in which I feel good even alone. I realized that dignity and peace are more precious than any relationship. If someone is listening to this and is currently experiencing betrayal, know that you will survive. You will become stronger. And the day will come when you look at yourself in the mirror and see a person who has gone through hell, but has not lost himself. Because betrayal is not a sentence. It is a test. And if you have passed it, you have already won.